Welcome back. It's Tuesday, August 29th, and today I'm releasing my official preseason NFL power ranking. Should be tons of fun. So comment your team and tell me where I went wrong, because I'm sure we aren't going to agree on everything in this video. But if you like sports podcasts, I'm telling you, this is the channel for you. I've been dropping 4 videos a week for about a year now. So if you enjoyed the channel at any point, all we ask for is that you support us down below on the road to 500 subs. But without further ado, this is the Anomaly Podcast, and let's kick off the list. Alright, if you've been following the channel at any point, over the last 2 weeks I went game by game, schedule by schedule for all 32 teams, and I predicted them, and I gave you guys official records. So if you strictly want to go based off of the numbers and how the teams finished based off records, this is how they played out. From Tier 1, read left to right. From Tier 2, read left to right, etc., etc. Tier 1 has the top 8 teams in the league, etc., all the way down. So if you want the strict numbers, that is how it lays out. As through the regular season, San Fran will be the best team, Arizona will be the worst team. However, we know numbers aren't always everything, and that's because of situation. We know some teams may have harder divisions or schedules in general, so we have to take that into account, and that's why I wanted to come here today with an official power rankings before the NFL season. So I've broken this down into 6 tiers. 1, we have the Super Bowl contenders. Obviously, these are the teams that can win it all this year. Playoff teams is the second tier. These are teams that can make it, maybe even win a game or two, but they are never really considered real contenders, kind of like the Cowboys. Kind of some foreshadowing there. Some fringe playoff teams. These are teams that barely missed the postseason, but they definitely are better than the teams below them. They're kind of just stuck there in the middle. We have the rebuilding teams. These are teams that are simply just a couple moves or trades away from getting to that next level. And the only exclusions to this tier are the teams that fit into the very last tier, in which I'll mention which teams are just kind of rebuilding teams. They're young, and they just happen to be a top 5 bottom feeder. We have the purgatory teams. Self-explanatory, these are teams that are just stuck in the middle of the road. We could also say this is the teams that are going to be underwhelming this year. And then, of course, then we have the bottom feeders. These are teams I expect to be in the Caleb Williams, the runnings, the Marvin Harrison runnings, the Drake May runnings. These are the teams I expect to finish with a top 5 pick in next year's draft. But with all of that said and done, hopefully that was pretty simple laid out. Let's move over to that tier here that I just mentioned. The Caleb Williams / Marvin Harrison tier. These are the teams I expect to be the 5 worst teams in football, record-wise, in 2023. We're going to start here with the Indianapolis Colts and the Arizona Cardinals. These are 2 teams that I said I would mention. These are teams that are rebuilding. These are teams that could fit into a different tier. The Colts, on one hand, they have a super young quarterback, a super raw quarterback. As a Gators fan, I'm excited to see what Anthony Richardson can do. But that team, with Anthony Richardson, their ceiling is only so high, with him needing some time to develop. Arizona, on the other hand, we know they're tanking. We know they're going to get Drake May or Caleb Williams and probably move on from Kyler Murray. It's just funny to see that Kyler Murray replaced Josh Rosen the same way that Kyler Murray's going to get replaced here in the next draft. So kind of funny there, but I'm a big Kyler Murray fan here. Tampa Bay could also be a rebuilding team technically. However, this is a team that was in a Super Bowl a couple years ago. Tampa Bay, I mean, they have Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. You're dropping off from a GOAT to Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. And that's coming from a Browns fan and a Gators fan, where I like Kyle Trask and I like Baker, despite contrary belief. But I just don't think that they're the guys to lead them to multiple wins and be in a really good spot. So a part of this is my hope for Todd Bowles that next year, if they have a bad year, that might be his last year. So go out there, get your quarterback, and try and salvage something with your head coaching career. Washington's another team that could fit in there, but we haven't really seen a lot from Sam Howell. Jacoby Brissett, I mean, if he steps in, he could be a serviceable starter. This team has the defensive unit to win games alone. However, is the offense going to be there in those tight games to push them over the top? That is going to be the question, and I just don't see it. So they might be in the running for a Marvin Harrison, because Terry McLaurin might be on his way to Buffalo. And then the Raiders. The Raiders might be the most surprising team here. However, Jimmy G, Josh McDaniels, you guys know I think Josh McDaniels might be one of the worst coaches in the NFL. I just don't think they're ready. You know, there's going to be more questions this year with the futures of their stars. like Chandler Jones, Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs than on the field. So the focus is not going to be where it should be, and they're going to suffer because of that. However, they're going to have the best bridge quarterback in the league with one of the youngest quarterbacks, if that is the case, like Caleb Williams or Drake May, to succeed Jimmy Garoppolo after next season. So shout out to those teams here that they're going to be in a position to change their future with a draft pick. Moving over to that purgatory tier, these are teams that I had to make their own tier because they weren't rebuilding teams, but I didn't think they were bad enough to finish with a top 5 pick. And that is the LA Rams, the New England Patriots, and the Tennessee Titans. The Rams are definitely the most likely to finish with a top 5 pick here. However, the Rams, they're aging, they're older. They just traded Jalen Ramsey away for a half-eating bag of chips. This team is clearly in the middle of a rebuild. But good news is that Sean McVay, one of the best coaches in the NFL, has committed to this team for the long run. At least that's what he just said as of recently. Again, we know how quickly minds can change. But Aaron Donald's only getting older. Matt Stafford's only getting older. And his back, how long is he going to be able to hold up? Cooper Kupp, same issues there. As he hasn't been injury riddled, but another hamstring injury just a few weeks ago. Is he going to be ready for the season? And is he going to be at the highest level? There's some questions with this team, especially with their stars, their future. They're clearly in a rebuild year. If it was my hope for them, if I was a Rams fan, I'd be like, let's just go after Caleb Williams. Let's get someone that next year can sit behind Matt Stafford and then take over for this franchise. Regardless what's around him, we have maybe the next superstar quarterback at in our disposal for the next 10, 15 years, right? The New England Patriots, a team that they brought back Bill O'Brien to be their offensive coordinator. Matt Patricia is back to being a defensive coordinator. So their coaching staff makes a lot more sense this year. And not to mention, they have maybe the greatest coach of all time at the helm in Bill Belichick. However, I just don't really believe in this team to win at the highest level. It doesn't help that their division is super tough. Maybe the best division in football. But New England, I think this is kind of also my hope for them. They kind of finished with a top 10 pick. And they can go out there and grab a guy to, I guess, bolster this rebuild or bolster whatever phase that they're in to get them over the top. And Bill Belichick can compete a couple more times before he hangs it up. The Tennessee Titans might be the most surprising team on this list that I have them in the purgatory tier. But this is a team that, to me, will underperform a lot this season. And mainly, it's going to be because of the quarterback situation they have there in Tennessee. As if it's not Ryan Tannehill under the helm. Right? I'll put it this way. So in my schedule prediction, this Tennessee team has a very tough start to the schedule. I have them winning week 1. After that, it's a very tough 6 or 7 week stretch. Let's say hypothetically this team is 1-6 at one point in the year. Does this team look to move on from Ryan Tannehill? Do they say, okay, let's see what we have in Will Levis before the season completely goes underwater and goes to waste? Let's see what we have with the young quarterbacks. And if that is the case, I have no confidence in Will Levis this year, as well as Malik Willis. So if that is the case and this team decides to move on from quarterbacks way too early, it could get ugly. And I think this team is just going to be, again, a 4 to 7 win team. Nothing too crazy, not a bottom feeder, but not a team that's going to be really competing for a playoff spot. And that is coming in a weak division. So Tennessee, just not the biggest fan of them this season. Moving over to the rebuilding teams, we have the Houston Texans, the Carolina Panthers, Chicago Bears, and the Green Bay Packers. Three promising NFC teams here. And, of course, the Texans. We'll start here with the Panthers. They have the number 1 overall pick in Bryce Young. A solid defense led by pieces like Brian Burns and J.C. Horn. This team has the pieces offensively and defensively. They're just a rebuilding team. They just have the number 1 overall pick who should be able to step in and be very comfortable. But he's going to need some time to take this team over the top. So just this year is going to be a year to build continuity. And you can say the same for the Houston Texans, who have the number 2 and 3 overall picks in C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. New head coach in DeMeco Ryans. I'm excited to see what Houston can do this year. But it's just a year of continuity. It's a year of growth and development for both the coaching staff and the players on the field. For both of these teams, they have young guys. They just need time to develop. But moving over to Chicago, this is a team that I have at 7-10 this year, if I remember correctly. So I guess you could say that's underwhelming, right, with how some people have them predicted this year. But Justin Fields, I expect him to look a lot better. I expect this offense and defense to look a lot better this year. just not in the win column. They might fall short a couple times, like I mentioned in the prediction videos. They have a relatively hard schedule. This is a team that, again, might have, they're going to look like a better football team. They just might drop some games and just not, you're not going to see the improvement in the win column as much as you would like coming into the year. Green Bay is a team I'm a big fan of this year. However, I think they finish around the 8-9, 9-8 range. Jordan Love, big year for him. I think he is going to prove this year. He's going to be the guy for them. Watch out, Week 13. I'm calling it now because I want to manifest it. I want to manifest Jordan Love going into Arrowhead and beating Kansas City, the Kansas City Chiefs and Pat Mahomes. That would be something because I was a big fan of Jordan Love out of Utah State. And now he has his chance, succeeding Aaron Rodgers in an offense that's loaded, at least up front. And this team has a chance to be special this year and shock a lot of people. I think they can do that. But again, it is a first-year starter in Jordan Love. It is a rebuilding team for sure. Before we move on to the next tier, I want to shout out to today's sponsor, Life by Laura. This is a company that reached out to me about a month ago, and they said, hey, if there's a mutual interest, would you love a custom tumbler? I said yes in a heartbeat. They sent me out a custom tumbler with my special logo on it. If you want to see how it looks, head over to my Instagram at The Anomaly Podcast, as there's a video on it. You can see the high quality of it. And I've been using it here a couple times a week, whether if it's hot beverages, cold beverages. I've been using it a couple times every week, each and every week. And I couldn't be more thankful, as they're the first sponsor here on the channel. And Life by Laura. I mean, you can go over to her Facebook at Life by Laura on the screen, or her Instagram at Life by Laura 2023 to see her past projects, future projects, or even shoot her a DM. I'm sure she can get something done for you that maybe she hasn't even done before. Laura's amazing, and her company is on the uprise. So go over there and check her out, as I promise you, you won't be disappointed, at least with the cup I got. I am very, very happy with her reaching out to me and providing me with this amazing cup. So shout out to today's sponsor. Go ahead and check her out and give her a follow on Facebook if you have a second. But moving over here to the fringe playoff teams, otherwise known as maybe these are the next couple teams that, is there going to be some panic this year? There's a lot of questions around these teams, and we'll get into that as I get it. I'm going to get put through a table here in the next week or two. There is no doubt about it. I'm going to run across a Buffalo Bills fan and be put through a table, but I think I'm okay with that, as the Buffalo Bills are going to be a fringe playoff team for me. Again, if they make the playoffs, I have them in the Super Bowl contention tier. It is the Buffalo Bills, led by a top 3 quarterback in the league with a good offense, good defense, of an underrated at this point head coach. I just think with how their division is so tough and their schedule is so tough, I have them missing the playoffs by 1 game, and not that I don't think that they're better than some teams that make the playoffs in the AFC or even NFC. It's just with how their schedule laid out. And I unfortunately had them missing the playoffs, but again, there's going to be some questions. Let's say in this world that they miss the playoffs, that this is the reality. Do you trade for Cooper Kupp? Do you call up Washington and say, hey, what do you want for Terry McLaurin? Those are going to be some questions. Does Stephon Diggs want to stay long term? You're going to have to answer a lot of questions about this team's future, and I think if they miss the playoffs, I think no doubt Sean McDermott's gone, and you're going to have to answer those questions in the wide receiver room, as this team needs to get over that hump, as Super Bowl windows don't last forever, and the Buffalo Bills one is definitely closing faster than it's opening. But the Buffalo Bills, I mean, again, if they make the playoffs, I have them as a Super Bowl contender. It's just how the schedules and the records laid out in the AFC that they missed it by 1 game. But moving over to the Cleveland Browns, as a Browns fan, it is a year to panic, no doubt. There's going to be questions about the coaching staff and Stefanski. There's going to be questions on Deshaun Watson. Is he back to form? There's going to be questions on both sides of the ball. If we underperform yet again, do players like Myles Garrett or the Denzel Ward want out of Cleveland? There's a possibility of that. Even though they've shown no record of that, we know star players can change their mind at an instant, and they want out in an instant. If we fail yet again, do some of these players grow frustrated to the point where they want out of Cleveland? Does Deshaun Watson prove that he's not back to form yet, and we just wasted $200 million on a quarterback? Is the coaching staff the right coaching staff? There's a lot of questions about this Browns team this year, and I just think they finished 10-7. I think they barely missed out on the playoffs. They have the same record as the Bills, but again, we're just not there yet. I think this year is more so of a year of seeing the improvement from Deshaun Watson, seeing this team play at its highest level, at least, I won't say in the win column because we are capable of winning 12, 13 games, but at least I want to see this team play at a level where we're a competent football team and we're in games each and every week, and maybe going into next year we make a splash for a Cooper Kupp or Terry McLaurin, and then we're in a position where we are in the Super Bowl contention, right? As a Browns fan, I'm being modest here. I want to put them higher, but again, I'm being modest for the people. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I think they're a 9-8 football team this year, showed tons of promise. I can easily see them going 10-7, just like the teams ahead of them here. But the Steelers, amazing defense, offense, they're going to show a lot of promise this year. They're led by Mike Tomlin, maybe the best head coach in the game. I just don't think that they're better than the teams above them. It's as simple as that. So maybe they won't panic as much as their offense is developing. But again, their defense is only getting older, so maybe there's some panic there. For Seattle, Geno Smith, it's a big year for him. They just paid him a bunch of money. Let's say he comes into this year and leads his team to a 10-7 record, but they don't make the playoffs. Do they regret paying Geno Smith $50 million? That is going to be some questions there. What if this team doesn't go 10-7 like I predict? Do they panic? Did we overpay Geno Smith? Those are going to be some questions in Seattle this year. But I am hoping to see this offense play at its fullest potential. I mean, I'm excited to see when JSN can finally get back on the field after his wrist injury. And Jamal Adams is coming back. Hopefully he can play more than a half of football. The Giants in New York, I think, they just paid a bunch of money to Daniel Jones. The quarterback problems there. What if he comes out and he looks either the exact same or he looks worse than what he did last year? You're going to be frustrated with the quarterback position there in New York. As this team, it looks like it's ready to go. I will say maybe not a Super Bowl contender, but it looks like they have a Super Bowl, or at least a playoff roster. They just need that quarterback to take them over the top. So is Daniel Jones the guy? After paying him all that money, I'm sure you're expecting him to take a leap in his production and be that guy going forward. So we're going to have to see. We're going to have to see there if Daniel Jones is the man for New York. But moving over to the Denver Broncos, this is a question. This is the biggest team this year to keep an eye on, with all the buzz of we brought Sean Payton out of retirement. We still have Russell Wilson, a Hall of Fame level quarterback. We have the talent offensively, defensively. We just need to put it all together and to win some football games. So this year, the expectations is that this team does that. The expectations is that Sean Payton comes in, he salvages Russell Wilson's career, and they get back on the right track, the both of them, and they win at a high level and maybe make the playoffs. However, I think this team misses out. They're 9-8. They miss out on the playoffs, and I think this team, there's going to be some questions if this team doesn't make the playoffs this year, no doubt. But if this team doesn't make the playoffs, there's going to be a lot of questions. Is Russell Wilson finally past his prime? He's washed. He needs to retire. Sean Payton talked a lot of smack about the last head coach, and then he comes in and he can't lead this team to the playoffs. There's a lot of questions about this team, and I'm sure there will be some type of panic, more than there already is. But I do believe in this team more so than the average fan. I think they could win 9 to 10 games in 2023. Moving over to the playoff teams, these are teams, again, that make the playoffs. They're formidable. They can win a game or two, make things interesting, but they just don't have enough to get over the top. I want to consider them, at least, to get over the top. And starting in the AFC here, we have the Los Angeles Chargers, the New York Jets, and the Baltimore Ravens. In Baltimore, new offensive coordinator. They added Zay Flowers, who all reports say Zay Flowers looks better than Odell Beckham, Mark Andrews even, and Rashad Bateman. So they say Zay Flowers might be the number one option there in Baltimore in that offense this year. I don't believe that. I think number 2 is his ceiling next to Mark Andrews. But of course, those are preseason reports. Regardless, they say he's been far and away the best receiver in camp over Odell Beckham, over Rashad Bateman, over whatever else they have there in Baltimore. So Zay Flowers looks like he's going to be a promising rookie, maybe rookie of the year. This offense should put up a lot of points. They should be a lot more pass-focused. And if they can put up a lot of points, we know Baltimore always has a good defense. I think this team can be dangerous. And I think they snag that 7th spot in the AFC over the Buffalo Bills. And they go 11-6 this year. If you want to see how their schedule lays out like that, go ahead over to, I think, 2 weeks ago at this point for the AFC and NFC North predictions. The Ravens I had at 11-6. The New York Jets, a new look Jets, they have Aaron Rodgers. They've been looking for that quarterback to take them over the top, but now they have it. Now they have Aaron Rodgers next to a really good head coach in Robert Saleh, at least we think so, next to a promising defense, offense. They have a receiver that's looking to be the next superstar at the position in Garrett Wilson. Big fan of Garrett Wilson in fantasy, by the way. But Aaron Rodgers and this Jets team, they have a lot of promise this year. Some would say a Super Bowl. I don't go that far, but I think they can definitely go to the playoffs and win a game or two because their window is now. Their Super Bowl window is now with Aaron Rodgers. So we need to see some production immediately. Some big-time wins immediately. The Chargers, a team that I've been a big fan of. If you watch tomorrow's video, you'll find out I'm a big fan of Justin Herbert this year. But Kellen Moore's in town. This offense should be better than ever, at least as far as putting up points. And the defense, as long as they can stay formidable and stay solid, I think this Chargers team could be very, very underrated this year. I think they win 12 games. I have the Chargers at 12-5, having a season like they haven't had in about 15, 20 years. So the Chargers are one of the playoff teams that I was contemplating moving up into the next tier. But on the NFC side of things, we have the Cowboys, the Saints, the Falcons, the Lions, and the Minnesota Vikings. In the NFC North, we have the Lions winning the division with the Vikings as a close second. They're both 10-7. It comes down to the Week 18 game where I had the Lions winning. But in this matchup here, or with these two teams here, in this division is a better way to put it. These are teams that are just very good this year. The Lions show a lot of promise but can't finish. It's the other way around for the Vikings. They kind of struggle, but they're still managing wins, kind of like last year. But the Lions will eke out this division. I just don't think either team can win at the highest stage in the playoffs in next year when it matters the most. In the NFC South, we have the Falcons and the Saints. Kind of the same song and dance, where it's a tight race throughout the entire year. But Atlanta, the young team, gets the edge at the end. They finish 10-7 as well as the Saints. But the Falcons, I think more so than the Saints, have a chance to win in the playoffs. But this year is going to be a year for development for Atlanta. I think they make it to the playoffs, just not really a real team you take seriously, I'll put it that way. And then Dallas. Dallas is a team that can win a game or two each and every year, but it's Dallas. I have them at 12-5. I think they're going to be a very good regular season team, just not when it comes to the playoffs. You know, the playoffs, I mean, they don't win at the highest level. And that's going to even raise some more questions. You know, what if Dak Prescott leads his team to another playoff berth and they lose yet again? Is it Trey Lance's time to shine? I'm just throwing out a storyline there, as next year would be Trey Lance's final year before they could possibly pick up his fifth-year option. Moving over to the final tier today, and it's the Super Bowl contenders. We have 6 teams in this tier. And on the top right of your screen, or not the top right of your screen, but the top right of these boxes, you'll see these little yellow triangles. And in those triangles, you'll see a number. Out of 100%, because we know there's the one team can win the Super Bowl, another team can win it. So it's kind of think of it like a pie chart. Out of 100%, this is how I divvy up my percentages on these teams winning the next Super Bowl. I think Super Bowl 58 is the next one. Regardless, we're going to start here in Duval with a 5% chance the Jacksonville Jaguars shock the world and win the next Super Bowl. As, again, I hear you. How is Buffalo missing the playoffs? How is the Browns missing the playoffs? And you have Jacksonville winning it. This is where we get crazy. I mean, if you want me to come up here and say, okay, you have Cincinnati, Buffalo, Kansas City, the Chiefs, the Niners. If you want me to be vanilla, I can be vanilla, but again, why not take a shot in the dark? And that's what I'm going to do here with Jacksonville. They just added Calvin Ridley. They have an emerging superstar quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. This year 2 under Doug Peterson as Trevor Lawrence. I mean, in year 1, I think there was a stat that read he had a passer rating of 71.9. And then when Doug Peterson came to town last year, it jumped up to 95 point something. So that was the single biggest jump of a quarterback rating from year 1 to year 2 in the history of the NFL. Trevor Lawrence showed his potential last year, and he went from a guy that everyone viewed as a bust to now you have people like Colin Cowherd saying he's the 3rd best quarterback in the league. That is how much he improved last year, and I think he can get better, as crazy as that might sound. So I think Trevor Lawrence, if he can play at the level I think he can, given this team's division, I think this team, there's a real possibility they can win 13, 14 games and have the number 1 seed. And if all of that goes right for them, they are obviously going to be in a position to win the Super Bowl. I think I give them a 5% chance, though, as they're just a year away from me. I think a year or a defensive move away from me putting them in that next tier as far as the numbers here. A 10% chance goes to the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins, they have Tua, they have Jalen Waddle, they have Tyreek. Maybe the most explosive trio in the NFL. Well, excluding, I don't want to say explosive for Tua because that might come across the wrong way. But for Jalen Waddle and Tyreek, as a wide receiver duo, might be the best in the NFL. No doubt, the most explosive. They have touchdown potential on each and every play. So it doesn't matter if it's Tua, Mike White, me, or you at the quarterback position. If we throw a drag route or a screen pass to one of those receivers, we might be a quarterback that can throw a touchdown pass. That's how talented both of those guys are. And they have both of those guys at their disposal. So they have an explosive offense with an offensive guru in Mike McDaniel as the head coach. They have Vic Fangio leading this defense with his infamous Fangio 6 scheme with Jalen Ramsey in town. Maybe the best cornerback in the game with Bradley Chubb in town. This team has it all offensively, defensively. But the biggest question is the coach ready? And is the quarterback good enough to lead them to this point? I think they are. And I think I give them a 10% chance to win the Super Bowl this year, in all honesty. The San Francisco 49ers, they have everything, I think, right? I think they have everything, but there is a chance, and I'll say this. I give them a 15% chance to win the Super Bowl. The only thing holding me back from getting them into that 20 range is their quarterback. Brock Purdy last year, Mr. Irrelevant. Brock Purdy showed a lot of promise. I mean, he showed that I'll put it this way. He single-handedly was the reason that this Niners team traded away Trey Lance to another organization, and the Niners traded 3 first-round picks plus some to trade up for Trey Lance just a few years ago. And they had a 7th-round Mr. Irrelevant quarterback step in and prove, you need to get this guy out of town. And that's what they did with Trey Lance. So Brock Purdy is their guy going forward, we believe. But again, there is always the chance that Brock Purdy falls flat on his face. There's a chance that Brock Purdy is not as good as he was last year. And then this Niners team is back in a situation where maybe we have to rely on Sam Darnold to win football games. At the same time, though, any quarterback looks good in the Shanahan system. It's just a matter of how good are they that they win games at the highest level. I don't know. I think San Fran, to me, the only reason they're not in that next tier is because the next 3 teams have a top 3 quarterback, in my opinion, or a top 5 quarterback, and they can win at the highest level. So San Fran, really talented team, maybe the best overall team in the game, with maybe the best coach in the game. That quarterback is holding me back because there's a chance Brock Purdy is not what he was last year. Moving over to the Kansas City Chiefs at the number 3 spot, or I guess tied for second, as I give them a 20% chance to win the next Super Bowl and go back-to-back, winning, 3 in the last 4 years, or 2 in the last 4 years. But the Kansas City Chiefs, this is a team that has the best player in the league, has the best coach in the league in Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid. They have the best tight end in the league in Travis Kelce. They have a very underrated defense led by Chris Jones, who that's a guy that gives you 15 sacks on a yearly basis. They have everything. I don't need to sell you on the Chiefs. However, no team has repeated as Super Bowl champions since the 03-04 Patriots. And history tells us that it doesn't happen often. Again, if anybody were to do it or get back to that, it would be the Chiefs, led by Pat Mahomes, because Pat Mahomes might be the next quarterback that we talk about with Tom Brady. However, history would tell us that that statement is not in our favor, and I still have them as a top 3 team. I just don't think they win the Super Bowl, given that no team has done it back-to-back years since the Patriots in 03 and 04. But in the number 2 spot, also tied for 20%, it is the Philadelphia Eagles. They have everything. This is the most complete team in football, no doubt in my mind. Best offensive line, maybe the best defensive line, up there with Washington. Maybe the best defensive line. They have a top 5 quarterback in Jalen Hurts. They have maybe the best wide receiver duo in Devontae Smith, who's a former Heisman winner, as well as A.J. Brown, we know who the player A.J. Brown is. They have a really good tight end. Again, really good O-line. One of the best coaches. Kickers even. They have literally everything. This is like a Madden-built team through franchise if you're controlling the team and making a bunch of trades. This team has it all to get back to the point where they were last year. I think they do that. However, they're going to run into a team that is just more hungry than the Philadelphia Eagles, and that might come as a shock because the Eagles were one pass interference call away from being the reigning defending Super Bowl champions. So I think they do get back there because they have a chip on their shoulder. However, to me, they run into the second best player in football as my number one team this year, the team I think is going to win the Super Bowl. This is the team that I said was going to do this before last season even ended. I said in my conference title video or conference predictions last year when there was the final four teams, I had Kansas City winning, but I had Cincinnati. I said that next year they're coming back and they're winning this entire thing. So to fulfill that prophecy, to fulfill that statement, I'm going to give the Cincinnati Bengals a 30% chance. I know Joe Burrow had some injuries a couple weeks back, but he's expected to be back and ready for week 1. And there's no better place to get rolling and ease into things than against the Cleveland Browns. And I'm a Browns fan, but we don't perform well in week 1s. So if Joe Burrow's going to come in, he's going to do his thing, and he's going to end that stigma, for one, that he can't beat the Cleveland Browns. Right? I think this is the year that ends. But two, I think he proves I'm the second best player in the league, which I've also been saying. I'm the second best player in the league, and I'm the second best quarterback in the league. I'm going to be the only person that can compare with Pat Mahomes for the next decade. He is the Peyton Manning of our era. He might be because Tom Brady is Pat Mahomes, but he might be the next Peyton Manning of our era. And I think he shows that with a Jamar Chase, who's only going to get better this year. T. Higgins is in a contract year. He's going to be playing crazy. The defense is underrated, led by Lou Anarumo. Very underrated defensive line there. And this offense has it all. The defense has it all. The coaching staff, I worry about a little bit with Zach Taylor, but the talent is there, and this team made the Super Bowl just 2 years ago. They can do it again, and I think they're even more dangerous than they were 2 years ago. Joe Burrow, to me, second best player in the league, second best quarterback, and I'm going to try and fulfill this statement that I made about 6-7 months ago, right? But that is going to do it for today's show. Again, we ran through 6 different tiers of teams, my official preseason rankings, and I'm sure after the year we'll have to do something fun and maybe go back and react to this. But that is, again, going to do it for today's show. I will see you guys tomorrow for some of my guys this year in fantasy football. So if you guys like fantasy football at all and you want some gems going into your drafts, tune into tomorrow's video, right? Or even Friday, I'm releasing my final set of rankings here in fantasy football this year. Should be tons of fun. But that is going to do it for today's show. I know I've said that a couple times, but drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you're still here, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. So until then, stay happy, stay healthy. We're out.